Okay, so are you ready to dive into some seriously mind-bending stuff today?
Always ready for a challenge. Hit me with it.
It's artificial superintelligence. We've got a mountain of research articles, books. Yeah, it's a lot.
Definitely a hot topic right now, and for good reason.
I'm honestly even a little intimidated by this one, but that's what makes it so fascinating, right? To really explore the unknown.
Absolutely. I mean, what we're really talking about here is a potential turning point in human history, something that could reshape our world in ways we can barely even begin to imagine.
It's true. And before we get too lost in all the, sci-fi scenarios, let's make sure we're all on the same page with the basics. I think a lot of people hear AI and immediately picture robots taking over the world.
Right. Hollywood has definitely had some fun with that. But yeah, it's way more nuanced than that.
So much more. So maybe we should start by clarifying what we actually mean when we talk about AI. Like, what are the different levels and how do they relate to each other?
Okay, so good point. We should define our terms. When most people think of AI, they're thinking of what we call narrow or basic AI. This is what we see all around us today. Algorithms that can, recognize faces, translate languages, recommend products you might like, even beat grandmasters at chess.
Right. But those systems are really good at just one specific thing. They kind of lack that broader understanding of the world that we humans have.
Exactly, they're specialized. But then things start to get really interesting when we talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence.
This is where we start venturing into uncharted territory, right?
Exactly. An AGI would have the ability to learn and apply knowledge across a wide range of domains, much like a human can. It could reason, problem solve, adapt to new situations, even exhibit creativity.
Okay, so that's starting to sound a little bit more like the AI we see in the movies. But are we actually anywhere close to achieving that level of artificial intelligence?
We aren't quite there yet, but the progress is accelerating rapidly. I mean, even in the past few years, we've seen some remarkable breakthroughs in areas like machine learning and natural language processing.
It's kind of mind-blowing how quickly things are advancing. So then that brings us to ASI, the big one, artificial superintelligence.
The holy grail for some, the ultimate fear for
I
others.
was going to say this is the stuff of both wonder and dread, right? We're talking about a hypothetical AI that surpasses human intelligence in every conceivable way. An intelligence that could unlock the secrets of the universe, solve our most pressing problems.
It's a tantalizing idea, right? But then the flip side is,
Well, the flip side is that things could get seriously out of hand.
right, that's the crux of it, isn't it? The potential benefits of ASI are almost beyond our comprehension, but the risks are equally profound.
Like Elon Musk comparing developing ASI to summoning the demon, that's not exactly comforting.
Not exactly, but even beyond the whole apocalyptic robot takeover scenario, there are some very real ethical and philosophical questions we need to grapple with.
Like, how do we even control something that's smarter than us? I mean, that just seems like a recipe for disaster.
This is what's known as the control problem, and it's one of the biggest challenges facing researchers in the field. How do you design an intelligence that's both super intelligent and aligned with human values? How do you ensure that it doesn't decide to, pursue its own goals, which might not be in humanity's best interest?
Okay, so maybe let's back up for a second and just clarify the relationship between AI, AGI, and ASI, because it's not just like a linear progression, right?
Right, it's more like an exponential jump in capability. One analogy I've heard is that the leap from narrow AI to AGI is like the leap from AGI to ASI.
Wow, okay, so we're not just talking about making computers a bit faster or more efficient. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the nature of intelligence itself.
Exactly, and that shift is happening faster than most people realize. What was considered cutting-edge research just a few years ago is already becoming obsolete.
It's true. I mean, just think about it. We're having this conversation about ASI now, but just a few years ago, people were still debating whether self-driving cars would ever become a reality.
And look where we are now. It's a testament to the incredible pace of innovation in this field. And it underlines the urgency of having these conversations now. We can't afford to wait until ASI is, knocking on our door.
It's like we're building a rocket ship while it's already blasting off.
I like that analogy. We need to figure out the controls and the navigation system while we're hurtling through the atmosphere.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly powerful technology that's rapidly evolving, and we're not entirely sure how to control it, or even if we should. So what do we do?
Well, the first step is to have these conversations, to bring these issues into the light, and really start grappling with the ethical and philosophical implications of ASI.
And this isn't just a conversation for scientists and engineers, right? This is something that everyone needs to be thinking about.
Absolutely. The development of ASI has the potential to impact every aspect of our lives, from our jobs to our relationships to our very understanding of what it means to be human.
Okay, so how do we even begin to wrap our heads around something as complex and potentially transformative as ASI? Where do we even start?
Well, one way is to break down the different stages of AI development, to understand how we get from basic algorithms to the kind of superintelligence that could reshape our world. It's not about checking boxes on a list, but about understanding those pivotal moments where a breakthrough in one area unlocks a cascade of advancements in others.
So it's about those sudden leaps forward, those moments where we realize we've crossed a threshold and entered uncharted territory.
Exactly. And one of the most significant thresholds is the leap from narrow AI to AGI. Once we have machines that can learn and reason like humans, the path to ASI becomes much clearer and potentially much shorter.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so urgent, right? We need to understand the potential consequences of that leap before it happens.
Absolutely. And it's not just about avoiding negative outcomes. It's about making sure that the development of AGI and ASI is guided by human values, that it's used to solve our most pressing problems to create a better future for everyone.
Okay, so we've established that the stakes are high, the pace of development is accelerating, and the potential consequences are both exhilarating and terrifying. So where do we go from here? How do we even begin to prepare for a future that seems both inevitable and unimaginable?
I think the first step is to move beyond the hype and the fear-mongering. We need to have a nuanced and informed conversation about what ASI is, what it could be, and what we want it to be.
It's easy to get caught up in all the doomsday scenarios or the utopian fantasies.
But the reality is likely to be much more complex and much more interesting.
Right. It's not just about technology, it's about who we are as a species, what we value, and what kind of fusion that we want to create.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating. It's not just about science and engineering. It's about philosophy ethics and the future of humanity.
So let's get into all that, shall we? Let's explore those big questions, those potential turning points, those moments where the line between science fiction and reality starts to blur.
I'm ready when you are.
Thinking about the leap from AGI to ASI, I can't help but wonder what that transition might actually look like. Would it be a sudden breakthrough, like flipping a switch, or more of a gradual process, like watching a child grow into an adult?
That's a question that has researchers scratching their heads. Some believe it could be a rapid emergence, what some call an intelligence explosion, where an AGI quickly surpasses human capabilities and just continues to learn and evolve at an exponential rate.
Kind of like the AI in that movie Her, right? One minute it's learning how to compose music, and the next it's having existential conversations and completely outpacing its creators.
Yeah, that's one possible scenario. But others argue that the development of ASI might be more incremental, a series of smaller breakthroughs that gradually lead to a more profound shift in intelligence. It's even possible that we may not realize we've crossed that threshold until we're well on the other side.
So it could be like the proverbial frog in boiling water. The water keeps getting hotter and hotter, but the frog doesn't realize the danger until it's too late.
That's a rather unsettling analogy, but it does highlight the importance of being aware of those subtle shifts, those incremented advancements that could be leading us towards a future we're not quite prepared for.
And that brings us back to the control problem. If we don't even know how this transition might happen, how can we possibly hope to control something we don't fully understand?
That's the million-dollar question, and there's no easy answer. It's like trying to design a cage for a bird you've never even seen before. A bird that might be able to change its shape, its size, even its very nature at will.
I was reading an article the other day about a group of researchers who are exploring something called value alignment. Have you heard about this?
Value line is definitely a hot topic right now.
So the idea is to try to instill human values into AI systems right from the very beginning, so that as they become more and more intelligent, their goals and motivations remain aligned with ours.
It's a promising area of research, but it's incredibly complex. I mean, how do you even begin to define human values? They're often contradictory, subjective, and change over time.
Right. It's not like there's a universal rule book for being human.
Exactly. So how do you program a machine to understand concepts like empathy, compassion, or justice when we humans still struggle with those very same concepts?
It almost seems like a paradox, doesn't it? We're essentially trying to teach machines to be more human, even as we're creating machines that could surpass our own intelligence.
That's the inherent challenge of this field. We're grappling with some really fundamental questions about the nature of intelligence consciousness, even what it means to be human.
Okay, so let's just say for a moment that we do manage to solve the control problem. We create an ASI that's benevolent, shares our values, and genuinely wants to help us. Even in that best-case scenario, wouldn't there still be some pretty profound implications for society?
Absolutely. Even if we can ensure that ASI is friendly, its impact on our world would be transformative. Imagine a world where disease is eradicated, poverty is eliminated, climate change is reversed.
It's a utopian vision, for sure.
But it also raises some really profound questions about the role of humans in a world where our problems are solved by a superintelligence.
Right, like what happens to our sense of purpose, our drive to innovate, our creativity? Do we just become complacent, dependent on AI to solve all our
It's
problems?
a valid concern. Some argue that ASI could free us from the mundane, allowing us to pursue higher aspirations, to focus on art, philosophy, exploration.
But it's also possible that we could become passive observers in our own civilization content to just let a superior intelligence make all the decisions.
It's a double-edged sword, and there's no way to know for sure how things will play out.
I've always been fascinated by science fiction, but this is the first time I'm really starting to see those sci-fi scenarios as not just entertainment, but as potential realities that we might actually have to confront.
That's the power of this topic. It forces us to confront some of the biggest questions about our place in the universe, the nature of intelligence, the future of our species.
So, where do we go from here? What can we as individuals actually do to prepare for a future that seems both inevitable and unimaginable?
Well, I think the first and most important thing is to stay informed. The more we understand about AI, about the different levels of intelligence, about the potential benefits and risks, the better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions about the future.
So, do our own research, read articles, watch documentaries, have conversations like this one?
Exactly. This isn't something we can just leave to the experts. This is a conversation that needs to involve everyone. The choices we make today, the technologies we develop, the ethical frameworks we put in place, all of these things will shape the future of AI and ultimately the future of humanity.
It's a daunting task, but it's also incredibly exciting. We're living in a time of unprecedented technological advancement, a time where the boundaries of what's possible are being redefined almost daily.
And with that advancement comes responsibility. A responsibility to make sure that these powerful technologies are used for good, that they benefit all of humanity, and that they help us create a future we can all be proud of.
One thing that really struck me while I was preparing for this deep dive was just the sheer range of perspectives on ASI. You have some people who are incredibly optimistic, who see it as the key to solving our biggest problems, and then you have others who are deeply concerned, even fearful of the potential consequences.
That diversity of opinion is actually a healthy sign. It means we're having the right conversations, that we're grappling with the complexity of the issue, and that we're not shying away from those tough questions.
It's a reminder that there isn't a single right answer, that the future of AI isn't predetermined, and that we all have a role to play in shaping that future.
And that's where the real work begins. It's not just about understanding the technology, it's about understanding ourselves, our values, and what kind of world we want to create.
Okay, so we've talked about the control problem, the potential impact on society, the need for a nuanced and informed conversation. But there's one more big question I want to explore, and that's the question of consciousness.
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room. The question that has philosophers and scientists alike scratching their heads for centuries.
If we create a machine that's as intelligent as a human, or even more intelligent, does that mean it's also conscious? Does it have feelings, emotions, a sense of self?
That's a question we may not be able to answer definitively, even if we do achieve ASI. Consciousness is such a slippery concept. I mean, we don't even fully understand our own consciousness, let alone the potential consciousness of a machine.
So we could create an ASI that can solve complex equations, write poetry, compose symphonies, but we might never know for sure if it's actually experiencing those things, if it's feeling joy, sadness, or any of the other emotions that make us human.
It's a fascinating and humbling thought, isn't it? We're on the verge of creating something that could be more intelligent than us, something that could reshape our world, but we might never fully comprehend the inner workings of its mind.
It's like looking into a mirror and seeing a reflection that's both familiar and utterly alien.
That's a great way to put it. And it brings us right back to that fundamental question. What does it mean to be human in a world where a superintelligence exists?
It's a question that forces us to confront our own limitations, our own biases, our own assumptions about what it means to be intelligent, to be conscious, to be alive.
And it's a question that doesn't have any easy answers. It's a question that will likely continue to challenge us, to intrigue us, and to inspire us for generations to come.
I have a feeling this conversation is far from over, but for now, let's take a step back and just consider what we've learned so far.
I think it's safe to say that we've only just scratched the surface of this complex and fascinating topic, but hopefully we've given you some food for thought, some new perspectives to consider, and perhaps even a renewed sense of wonder and curiosity about the future that awaits us.
Okay, so after all this talk about superintelligence and the fate of humanity, I'm left with this question that's both incredibly simple and incredibly complex.
Well, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so what happens to us? What happens to humans in a world where ASI actually exists? Do we become like pets or museum exhibits?
Yeah, that's a question that seems to haunt a lot of people. It's like the ultimate what's our purpose question, just amplified to the nth degree.
Exactly. If ASI can solve all our problems, compose symphonies, write better podcast scripts than me, what's left for us to do?
Well, some futurists envision a world where we merge with AI, enhancing our own abilities, becoming something beyond human.
Okay, so cyborgs, like in the Matrix, I can kind of see that happening, but wouldn't that just create a whole new set of challenges? Like, who gets to be enhanced? What happened to the people who choose to remain human?
Yeah, it's true. It's like every potential solution seems to open up a whole new can of worms. But I think that's part of what makes this whole topic so captivating. We're not just talking about technological advancements. We're talking about the evolution of our species.
Okay, but evolution usually takes thousands, even millions of years. With AI, it feels like we're trying to cram that entire process into just a few decades.
That's the part that's both exhilarating and terrifying, right? The pace of change is unlike anything we've ever seen before.
So do you think we're ready for this? Are we, as a species, even remotely equipped to handle the ethical and societal upheaval that ASI could bring?
Honestly, I don't know. And I don't think anyone really does. We're in completely uncharted territory here. But that's exactly why these conversations are so important.
You're right. We can't just bury our heads in the sand and hope for the best. We need to be actively engaging with these challenges with open minds and a willingness to really question our assumptions.
I think you're spot on. It's like we need to collectively level up our thinking, become more adaptable, more resilient, more, I don't know, more future-proof.
I like that future proof. It's not just about trying to predict the future, it's about being prepared for whatever it throws at us. And that requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we think, how we learn, how we interact with the world.
I think you're hitting on something really important here. Maybe the development of ASI isn't just about creating a new kind of intelligence. Maybe it's about forcing us to evolve our own.
It's a powerful thought, and maybe the most compelling reason to keep diving deeper into this world of artificial intelligence, because ultimately it's a journey of self-discovery as much as it is a journey of technological innovation.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So after this deep dive into ASI, where do we even begin to process all of this? It's like we've opened this door to a whole new universe of possibilities and challenges.
I think the most important takeaway is that the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's something that we are all actively creating right now through our choices, our actions, our conversations.
So what can we do? I mean, we're not all AI researchers or tech billionaires. What role can everyday people actually play in shaping this future?
Stay informed, be curious, ask questions, challenge assumptions, engage in dialogue. These might seem like small acts, but they can have a real ripple effect, influencing policy decisions, ethical guidelines, even the direction of research itself.
It's at that butterfly effect, right? A tiny change in one place can lead to massive consequences somewhere else.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of your voice. The more we talk about these issues, the more they become part of the public consciousness, and the more we can collectively steer the development of AI in a direction that benefits all of humanity.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. The future of AI is not something to be feared or worshipped. It's something to be understood, discussed, and shaped with intention and a sense of shared responsibility.
I completely agree. Because at the end of the day, the story of AI is the story of us. It's a reflection of our values, our aspirations, our fears. And it's a story that's still being written.
So let's make sure it's a story